vehicle I've got in the shop that I'm actually going to be showing you some things on today is a 2008 Jeep Compass. I want to show you an issue with the lower control arm as far as the ball joints and how to replace that lower control arm step by step, showing you what sockets you're going to need, what size, and a couple little items to help you get it out of the way, and some pointers on when you're going back with it and what you need to do afterwards. So let's go ahead and move on to doing this repair. You've got the vehicle in there. This particular one's on the lift. You could have it on jack stands, for example. What we're looking for is, this is the lower control arm. Lower control arm comes with the bushings on both ends, as well as the ball joint on the front. What we're going to have to do is we're going to have to take the bolt out of the front, where the front bushing goes, as well as a bolt and nut on this one at the rear as well. This one goes straight up from the bottom, this one goes straight in from the front, and then we've got a bolt and nut being used basically it's a pinch type scenario where it goes up under the ball joint itself. The shaft has a notch in it so that the bolt can pass through, and as it passes through, that keeps it from going up and down, and then once the nut goes on the back side tighten down, it squeezes it as well. So we're going to move on to get into the front bolt first. In order to get it to give us a little more room to work, we're going to take this plastic panel, we're going to take it loose right here and kind of move it out of the way. Now the plastic fastener that holds that panel on that I was talking about, I want to get to, that's actually a splash shield. It's a plastic insert that has a plastic Phillips screw in it. Now some of them get to where over a period of time you can't get them back out. Either they strip out or it's just plastic on plastic, so they want to jump. So they slowly start backing out. You don't want to use much pressure because any pressure keeps it wanting to go back in. So as light as you can, back it out. This one's still in good shape. Now I can pull it off. And now you can see what I was talking about. That's the insert. And that's the threaded portion right there that goes in there. This one actually still is in good shape, so we can reuse it. Being that the subject's going to be replacing the control arm because of a ball joint issue, I want to go ahead and show you what's going on. It's a fairly common issue on these cars once they get some miles on them. This one has approximately 75,000. What you can do is you can grab the tire, and if you pay real close attention, you can actually see the ball joint moving. The tie rod on this thing's fine, the hub bearing's fine. The only thing that has any movement is actually that lower ball joint. Like I said, I see it fairly often. So now you know exactly why we're going to be replacing it. And now we're going to move on to showing you how to replace it. Alright, now we've got the shield loose. We're going to go ahead and get to that 13/16 bolt on the front, as well as the bolt and nut on the rear. Now the front one has internal threads further back up inside the frame on the cradle that actually hold it in place or act as a nut. So all you need to do is worry about getting the bolt out. So now all we gotta do is move on to the ball joint itself. And the bolt that goes through the front spindle that actually does the collapsing or compressing and tightening around the shaft on the ball joint, there's actually an 18mm bolt and also an 18mm nut on the back side. So we're going to go ahead and get that loose. Yeah, all we got to do is work on getting it loose, dropping the ball joint down. What you can do sometimes if you need to, I don't like using the pickle forks because they have a tendency to bust the boots. And being that on this style it's a collapse fit and that the bolt's already out to help stop the ball joint from moving, we can also knock a screwdriver in here or a metal chisel to help spread it slightly so that then we can get a couple taps to get it down. Once we get it down, it's just a matter of wiggling everything and pulling it out. Now as you can see, the rotor's off and so is the caliper. Now it's not off for this repair. I'm actually going to be turning the rotors. It just happened to be a coincidence that it would be off during the filming of this. But like I said, I'm going to go ahead and get my chisel, lock it up in there, help it relax the spindle. Alright, so we got the lower ball joint out of the spindle. Took a little bit of work. Just add a little bit of penetrating oil to it. Something like some PV blaster, it works pretty fine. If it gets to where it acts like it doesn't want to come out much further, I kind of work it back in, work it back out, till I finally get enough lube up in there, finally get it out. Sometimes you pry from this side, sometimes you pry from that side to get it to where it's nice and squared up coming out. So now we can work on getting the control arm off. Now we go ahead and just pull out. We've got the front one out, now the rear. And we just work on trying to squeeze it out. May have to move the spindle assembly out of the way a little bit. There we go. Now we got the rear out. The rear, like I said, went up in this cavity here. Now, when you're going back, everything's fairly simple. There's nothing elaborate or different. You just kind of have to work it. You're going to slowly get it up in here. It probably wouldn't hurt to put a little bit of grease, or if you want to use WD-40 so it has the ability to slide up in there a little bit easier. Same with getting the bolt in the front. Then, of course, you got your lower ball joint on the front control arm. Now, I was talking about earlier, when you start looking at the control arm, you'll start seeing there's a dip right here on the ball joint itself. That's actually where that nut goes, the bolt goes through in the nut. So not only do you have the pinching of the spindle holding the control arm ball joint in place, you've also got a bolt that goes through in this spot right here. So it has a tendency to stop it as well. Now when you go back to install it and you slide the spindle down on it, make sure when you look through the hole that the bolt goes through that you can see this concave cutout. Otherwise you don't want the bolt to be above, because then you might hit a bump or something and then it actually falls out. And if you have it anywhere else, the bolt's not going to want to go through easily. So if you have any problem getting the bolt through, make sure you've got that lined up. Now, anytime you're doing any kind of suspension work and you're going to tighten the bolts up, the ball joint necessarily doesn't apply. You're just going to tighten that up and be good to go. The bushings themselves, the front one and the rear, they want you to always tighten it up loaded, which basically means as if it was sitting on the ground at normal ride height. That way it's in a rest position. That way when you go up or go down for your suspension, there's perfect movement, there's no binding, there's no tension on the bushings. You want it to be at rest at how it would be sitting on the ground. So what you can do is you can get your floor jack, get up under that control arm where that ball joint is, and start jacking up gently so you finally get it to where the vehicle pretty much just comes off the jack stands if you're on the ground, or if you're on a lift you can start noticing that the plate starts moving slightly. At that point you go ahead and snug down your front and your rear 13/16 bolts. That way it's at the proper specs as far as the way the suspension is going to operate. That way you don't get no odd feeling sensations when you're going over bumps or have a drift or something caused because that corner is not sitting like it should. Once you get it done, make sure you get in alignment. Everything related to the steering is controlled by that, so if it was out previously you may have some readings that won't be accurate. Now you're going to pretty much only going to be able to, you may be able to adjust camber, cast, more likely not on this one, I'd have to look, but definitely your toe you can adjust, so make sure you get an alignment done shortly afterwards. With that, I always appreciate you watching my videos. I've said that time and time again. I'm always going to be spitting out more, so stay tuned for them. And the best way to do that is to always make sure you subscribe. Once you subscribe, you'll be notified every time I add one. Maybe it's a vehicle you've got, maybe it's a vehicle you know somebody has that might have a problem. With that, I greatly appreciate your help, and always, thanks.